Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the death of Xbox, but in a slightly different fashion than we typically do on this channel, which is that today we're going to talk about some raw sales numbers, because they just posted a bunch of financial reports for June, and this stuff is very much the whole spread. It's how many controllers sold on every console, how many games sold on every console, and how many consoles sold, right? And what's interesting is that not only is Xbox doing bad, not only are they obviously the bottom of every chart, but it really paints a bleak image as to how dead Xbox already is. At this point, the only people in the world that are buying Xbox games are PlayStation people. Literally, if it wasn't for the PS5, I do think the Xbox would be dead already. But let me break it down, because I feel like the context that's very difficult to parse out sometimes is just how screwed is Xbox? They like to post cryptic statements like, oh, 10 million people played Starfield. Okay, did they play it for 30 seconds? Did they play it for 30 hours? Xbox always tries to be incredibly vague about how their games are doing. And now I think we realize that everything they're putting out, if it wasn't on PlayStation, nobody would even play it. But let me talk. Hi, hope you're having a great day. And if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now I wanted to start with this because this just came out literally as I started filming this, which is that the CEO of Microsoft says that, oh, I feel so bad about laying off 15,000 employees. Oh, it weighs so heavily on me. You know, also we are making completely crazy amounts of money. By any objective measure, we are thriving. So he's basically saying, yeah, we're just going to keep firing Xbox people because they're less profitable than any other part. Like, Microsoft makes literally trillions of dollars on Windows and Microsoft Excel and everything else. They're basically saying, we don't even care. We can just let Xbox rot on the vine, despite the fact that they've spent billions, hundreds of billions of dollars trying to build up the Xbox brand. They're just going to let it rot for no reason. And I do find it funny that a lot of the replies are just being like, oh, okay, cool. So he just sucks. It's weighing heavily on him, and yet he definitely is a soulless corporate shell. Now here it is. Video game worldwide hardware estimates. Now, technically, these are usually about 95% accurate. Usually the numbers are a slight bit off just because sometimes, you know, some people are buying stuff and it takes a bit to tally up some of the ones and zeros, stuff that ended up falling off a truck, that kind of stuff. But look at this. Like, this is kind of just wild. So this is the world bracket. Let's just talk about the world bracket because, look, breaking it down by like, here's North America, here's Europe, here's Japan. But here's what's really, really crucial in my opinion. Worldwide, Nintendo Switch 2 sold 5 million units the first month. I think that's now technically the fastest selling console of all time. I'll be honest, still blows my mind. With all the hate, all the backlash, all the high price tags on Nintendo Switch 2, clearly people did not mind showing up to that with cash in hand. PlayStation 5 behind it with 900,000 sold. Pretty dang good when you just consider the fact that in a random June in 2025 with no major releases, the PS5 still sold almost 1 million units. The original Nintendo Switch selling 316,000 units worldwide. Still, even that is a pretty surprising number, but this is the part that I think everybody is very much focusing on. 150,000 Xboxes sold worldwide in the month of June. I truly feel like it cannot be overstated how bad this is. I mean, you're literally talking about a last-gen device, a last-gen handheld that came out in 2017, sold more than you did. Like, what in the world are we even doing here? Now, there has been a lot of talks about the fact that currently Xbox is making a big effort to basically just cut off parts of the world that aren't worth their investment. You can see here, like specifically, even in Europe and stuff, Europe and Japan, they're just selling lower and lower numbers. There has been a bunch of public leaks that basically they're trying to cut off those supply lines. It costs a lot of money to not just ship consoles to other countries, but then make deals. All right, we need it to be in, you know, the Japanese equivalent to Best Buy. They sign all these contracts, and clearly they're getting zero money back. So basically, it sounds like at this point, I think Xbox realizes that even having the console on store shelves, you're just geysering cash. You're getting nothing back for it, especially because at this point, the only place you really see people talking about Xbox games or buying Xbox games is on PlayStation and Nintendo Switch too. Christopher Dring, the game business, I've talked about this guy in the past. He's a guy who I feel like he leaks stuff that is all being talked about behind the scenes. He's a very old school game journalist. Chris Dring basically says that, look, this stuff is about to come out in the coming weeks. We know that we're exactly, I think, 3.5 weeks from Gamescom. Gamescom is happening over in Germany. And when it happens there, Xbox shows up. Xbox has already confirmed they're doing a big showcase. I do think there's a good chance they're going to just shadow drop Starfield. I think they're going to release Starfield on PS5. If I'm being brutally honest, I don't think it's going to sell at all. I think Starfield is just a colossal, expensive flop. I mean, not only is it the lowest rated Bethesda game, modders gave up on Starfield. Everybody gave up on Starfield. And I say that as a person that not only beat it, I beat that absolutely garbage game twice, although, the new game plus is funny. So I kind of beat it like 1.5 times. I even played the DLC. But my point is the fact that this is the kind of stuff that makes me think that Xbox realizes that if you're going to use your prime real estate, your time to come out on stage and talk about the future of Xbox, and it's your time to sort of hype up the competitor in the classical sense, I think it shows just how bleak things have gotten. Now, I've seen a lot of people try to say that somehow Xbox is doing better than we think. I've seen a lot of screenshots. I don't even want to put them in this video. I've seen a lot of Xbox YouTubers claiming that nobody buys PlayStation 5 games. I don't know why. Like, one of the things I've seen a lot of people claim that Death Stranding 2 failed when it's the number 2 selling game worldwide. I don't really understand how you could possibly say that Death Stranding 2 failed, but weird times. June's number 2 and number 4 are bestsellers on Xbox, but don't even make the top 20 overall. If this isn't a sign of how bad sales are on Xbox, I don't know what is. US is Xbox's strongest territory, and these are the US sales. So it just seems like there has been this bigger and bigger push for the idea that Xbox, not only can they not be tied to a single platform, I am more and more thinking that Xbox is probably going to discontinue Game Pass. At this point, Game Pass, it's for them. I'm going to make this clear. For Microsoft, they're probably seeing it as a massive waste of money. A lot of companies are very much all in on this idea of paying a subscription fee instead of ever actually owning your content, right? Instead of having Adobe Premiere for editing YouTube videos, you pay the Adobe Premiere subscription. You've got your YouTube Red subscription or premium, whatever the hell they call it. Instead of buying Netflix movies, you have a Netflix subscription. I almost feel like they're doing the math and saying, okay, so few people have Game Pass, we're just losing money. And now we've told people to never buy Xbox games. At this point, it's probably more profitable for them to, at least as an experiment, I do think there's a chance they're just going to chop up Game Pass and start attempting to actually sell games to their audience, which obviously is going to sell terrible on Xbox and it'll sell great on PlayStation. At least the games don't suck. But a lot of people are kind of talking about the fact that it's very weird that right now, we now have more sales data. Xbox has always, in my opinion, lied. Xbox likes to lie about the success of their games. Oh, we have the big, giant game. Wow, everybody's playing Hellblade when nobody played Hellblade. Oh, everybody's playing Starfield when nobody's actually playing Starfield. They're always vague. So now that we actually have sales data from a game, it's selling great on PlayStation. I think they're starting to think that. I've seen some big Xbox accounts even sort of saying that right now it's really important to give up on exclusives. I'm seeing that more people seem to be sort of like, begging for PlayStation games to come to Xbox. Port begging has never been more desperate. Here's Colt Eastwood. No hate on Colt, but Colt did a whole video basically saying that I want to see Spider-Man and Horizon and Returnal, all these games on Xbox. I don't think those will go to Xbox. I do think some stuff will go over to Xbox, but it is weird when you kind of look at a thing like this, right? This is obviously a very misleading thing here. A bunch of these games are not coming out. A bunch of these, there's Perfect Art. Most of these are canceled games. Most of these are never, ever, ever coming out, right? But let's just hypothetically say this is real, right? 20 games coming to Xbox, 10 games coming to PlayStation. A lot of these games ended up being very, very big. You can see right there, Stellar Blade. Oh my God, Last of Us Part 2 being listed. But my point is the fact that I do think that Xbox is going to petition PlayStation and ask for some games. And I do think some stuff might bridge that gap. I keep seeing stuff like this where people are basically saying, okay, the idea of exclusives just doesn't work. And a lot of people are kind of mocking this because right now we're seeing record-breaking sales. The top-selling games in the world are exclusives. Death Stranding 2 and Mario Kart World. Those are the biggest games in the world right now, and they're both exclusives, right? Doesn't that kind of show the sign that exclusives still have a point? I want to look at the replies here because a lot of people are pointing out utterly delusional take when the biggest and most successful console platforms by far are the only ones that have exclusives that chart. We're beyond that point. You might be, but the market isn't. Ask Nintendo how their ecosystem does. Basically, everybody is replying to this and saying, you're super stupid. Exclusives do matter. But I almost think that when it comes to Xbox, I feel like Xbox fanboys have to pretend that exclusives are somehow bad. Oh, the studio doesn't get as much feedback. It doesn't get as much audience. Oh, if we don't have exclusives, how will people enjoy the game? I don't know. It's such an odd argument to act like somehow exclusives hurt gaming when clearly that's just not the case. I would say that in a lot of ways, the best decisions we've seen from Xbox in the last year especially has been a reaction to PlayStation. They lowered the price back to $70 this week. They were talking about a month and a half ago. They were saying there's going to be a big push. Every Xbox game was going to be $80 now. They've backtracked on that. And I think they did that, honestly, because of how much people are pre-ordering and talking about Ghost of Yotei, a $70 PlayStation 5 game. And the same thing sort of goes with like a lot of Xbox games. People just aren't buying them in general. So maybe a lower price point, even undercutting it, maybe doing a $60 thing, I think that would be good. Another thing I definitely think is crucial is that Xbox has said we're going to go back to actually selling you a physical disc. It's not just going to be a code in the box. I do think this is a reaction. People buy PlayStation games. People buy physical Nintendo Switch games and Switch 2 games. People make a big stink about the code in the box they're attempting to do with Switch 2 games. I think things are very, very bad with Microsoft. And at this point, they've been kind of heads down. I've noticed a lot of the big Xbox executives on Twitter have barely been talking. I think what's going to happen here in 3.5 weeks at Gamescom, I think we're going to get a better picture about what Xbox plans to do in the long run. Because I know they're still claiming, oh, we have a next-gen console in mind. I think Xbox is going to PlayStation. I'm calling that now. I think Xbox is just going to go full third party, and I think they're just going to start doing everything they can, day and date, big budget, crazy Xbox stuff that's going to look great on a PlayStation 5 Pro. But at this point, current day Xbox, it ain't alive, brother. But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. How do you feel about the current state of Xbox, and how do you feel about how damn sunburned I am? Look at this sunburn. It honestly hurts like a son of a gun. Look at, I am just sunburnt to hell, and I'm literally gonna have to start riding my bike with a jacket. Even with sunblock on, I'm just getting so sunburned. But tell me your thoughts about Xbox and sunburns in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.